Mike. I don't know who you are. I don't know where you are. But your name will start changing your ways.
Mr. President, thank you for sitting down with us. There's a lot to talk about. I'd like to start with the horrible events of last weekend. It has shocked a lot of Americans. A political rally, your opponent, Donald Trump, shot in the middle of greeting his supporters. You spoke to Mr. Trump afterward. Can you give me a sense of that conversation?
Very cordial. I told him how concerned I was and wanted to make sure I knew how he was actually doing. He sounded good. He said he was fine, and he thanked me for calling him. I told him he was literally in the prayers of Jill and me, and I hope his whole family was weathering this.
You were in
By the way, chat, like this, can we just say about how this assassination attempt? By the way, we know the shooter wasn't a progressive, because if there had been even a scintilla of evidence that he was on the left in any way, it would have been blasted from every news media at full volume. Joe Biden would be condemning the Congressional Progressive Caucus with full-throated. They'd be arresting AOC. There's no evidence, as usual. There's no. He was an incel. He was an incel nihilist school shooter who, instead of running to his local pop-and shop, went to the rally that was across the street. So notice how this completely wipes away any idea that Trump is in any different class than Biden. Anybody who is a dumb liberal who's like, you gotta vote for Biden because Trump is gonna... They're the same fucking guy.
Delaware, when this happened, what was your first reaction?
My first reaction was, my God, look, there's so much violence now, the way we talk about it. I mean, the whole notion that there is this... There's no place at all for violence in politics in America. None. Zero. And we've reached a point where it's become too commonplace, not assassinations, but to talk about it. For example, the January 6th, the attack on the Capitol. Lester, I got in this race early on in 2020 for the 2020 race. I wasn't going to run again because I lost my son. I didn't feel, and until I watched what happened in Charlottesville, Virginia. Those folks coming out of the woods with torches, carrying swastikas, singing the same Nazi bile. That was accompanied by this Ku Klux Klan, and a young woman was killed, and I was a bystander.
Damn, I mean. Like, legitimately, Joe Biden saying, I came to run because of Heather Heyer death, who hated me and didn't agree with me on anything, is really galling. I really hate centrists. I mean, the one thing that will feel good will be watching him lose and be remembered as a fucking failure. Once and for all, everyone can be honest about him, which will be nice. That'll be a relief to just be able to rip into Joe Biden without having people, little fucking weenies, telling me how he's actually good.
And the then president was asked, what do you think? He said, they're very fine people on both sides. Not fine people on both sides. No excuse, zero.
Well, let's talk about the conversation this has started, and it's really about language, what we say out loud and the consequences of those. You called your opponent an existential threat on a call a week ago. You said it's time to put Trump in the bullseye. There's some dispute about the context, but I think you appreciate that.
I didn't say crosshairs. I was talking about focus on. Look, the truth of the matter was, what I guess I was talking about at the time was, there's very little focus on Trump's agenda.
Yeah, the term is bullseye.
It was a mistake to use the word. I didn't say crosshairs. I meant bullseye. I meant focus on him. Focus on what he's doing. Focus on his policies. Focus on the number of lies he told in the debate. I mean, there's a whole range of things that, look, I'm not the guy that said, I want to be a dictator on day one. I'm not the guy that refused to accept the outcome of the election. I'm not the guy who said that won't accept the outcome of this election automatically.
By the way, chat, and I'm going to say this, and I'm going to say it loud. I don't care about accepting the outcome of an election. If Hitler was running for office and he won the most votes, I would immediately suggest that you should have a revolution instead of accepting the results of the election, like the German liberals did. How did that work out, you dumb pieces of fucking shit? Fuck you. You're about to get landslided by Donald Trump. Please, Lord, I don't ask for much, but when Donald Trump wins, can you make sure that he arrests the Biden family and prosecutes them as a revenge? Please let Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden actually suffer consequences. I mean, at least, when the Nazis took over, what's incredible is that they actually did arrest some of the social democrats whose stupidity that had led to the rise of fucking Nazism with their weak, pathetic loser shit. Some of the more anti-Hitler socialists and communists had seen the writing on the wall and had fled into exile. Those that didn't make it. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what makes this so fucking pathetic. If you really think Donald Trump is Hitler too, what the fuck are you talking about?
You can't only love your country when you win. And so the focus was on what he's saying, and I mean, the idea.
But have you taken a step back and done a little soul searching on things that you may have said that could incite people who are not balanced?
Well, I don't think, look, how do you talk about
to say
the
they're
threat?
both the same is honestly stupid. They're exactly the same. They're exactly the same. Joe Biden is adopting immigration policies from Trump. And by the way, I debated Hutch on that and explained to him how dumb and fucking stupid he is in 2021. And I said, wow, he's not lifting Title 42. That's fucking weird. I saw the writing on the wall years ago. I was right again, as usual, you stupid liberal fucks. I can't wait for Biden to lose. Honestly, as mad as I am that it's going to cause devastating consequences for this country, we deserve it as a country for being this dumb. For electing Joe Biden. And I don't care if it was anti-democratic and it was the Democratic primary and not very many people vote and whatever. We deserve it. We deserve it for electing this guy. His eyes were exploding. His teeth were flying out of his fucking mouth. In 2020, he was falling apart like a rotten corpse. We deserve it. We absolutely deserve all the consequences of nominating and electing this fucking ghoul. And when I say he's the same guy as Trump, I mean personality-wise, they're identical. Which they absolutely fucking are.
To democracy, which is real, when a president says things like he says.
I have a feeling that even after all things happen, Biden might still win. How much would you like to bet? Will you give me 1-to-1 odds? 100,000? 200,000? 300,000? What are you talking? What do you got? There is absolutely no fucking way this corpse wins. If you think that Joe Biden has a chance of winning, you are insane. He is not going to win. Barring some sort of weird fucking freak incidents where Biden gets caught, I don't even know what would change it. Honestly, I don't even know what events could happen. There are no good events that can happen in Joe Biden's favor. None. I guess if Donald Trump goes out on the RNC stage tonight and spouts the N-word, then Biden might have a chance. Yes, I know. I saw that, Dusty. We're going to get to it. There is no chance he wins. You're in full-blown cope. Biden's current odds, according to Vegas, are plus 425. That's incredible. The reason why I can offer you to bet somebody $300,000 on Biden is that I could then go to Vegas or go to a bookie and hedge that and basically guarantee myself profit of $100,000 and some $1,000. If somebody would actually give me a $300,000 bet on even odds, I can then go and bet on Biden at a bookie and automatically bank money, assuming you're good for it, which you wouldn't be. That's and why is that? It's because Biden is such an underdog. And if you think Joe Biden is good for trans people, he's fucking trying to ban trans people in sports. Go look at what the Labour Party is doing to trans people in the UK. It's no different. And using trans people to try to get people to vote for Biden while he's doing a genocide is really just the most pathetic thing I've ever heard in my life. Like, you should be ashamed of yourself. You should be ashamed of yourself. Not only is he terrible on policy, not only was he a failure as a president, not only does he not advocate the policies we need to save the country. That's the other thing. Even if Joe Biden were elected, everything's going to continue to get worse. Because there's a 6-3 Supreme Court and he doesn't advocate packing the Supreme Court. So that's not going to end. We're going to continue to have a cavalcade of bad decisions from the Supreme Court, dismantling the New Deal, dismantling the Great Society, dismantling the regulatory state, dismantling rights that have been enshrined by previous Supreme Court decisions. Decision after decision after decision is continued to come down and hammering us and constraining what the president can do for years and years and years. And Joe Biden doesn't suggest that we have Supreme Court reform. So literally voting for Biden is voting for defeat. That's the reality. 100,000%. Even if he were to win. And the reality is that Joe Biden is so goddamn unpopular. He's so goddamn unpopular that it's very likely that Donald Trump is going to win a landslide and have the Senate and the House to implement all of Project 2025 and whatever else Republicans want to pass. Did you ever consider getting back into politics again? What, for a gerrymandered district? To be primaried by another Democrat who gets $1 million because I'm not a Zionist from AIPAC? So I run in a deep red state that has no chance of winning, or I run in a blue district and get millions of dollars against me by Zionists. What's the fucking point? Are you insane? You know what's funny about the shooter being in a BlackRock video? Isn't that he had any connection to BlackRock? The reason why he's in the BlackRock video is much more interesting to me. The shooter's in a BlackRock video because it's his teacher who's trying to say, ooh, teachers' pensions are managed by BlackRock. Okay, governments, give more of our pension money, unions, to these big Wall Street firms so they can soak up more and more of my retirement money in fees. So it's just part of the looting of Western Pennsylvania. The last nugget of value to be extracted from Western Pennsylvania is government employee pension money being stolen by BlackRock. It's the final humiliation, the final exploitation, the final degradation of Pennsylvania. That's what that video represents to me. And that's the real story, which again, nobody gives a shit about but me.
Do you just not say anything because it may incite somebody? Look, I have not engaged in that rhetoric. Now, my opponent is engaged in that rhetoric. He talks about there'll be a bloodbath if he loses, talking about how he's going to forgive all the, actually, I guess, suspend the sentences of all those who were arrested and sentenced to go to jail because of what happened in the Capitol. I'm not out there making fun of, like, remember the picture of Donald Trump when Nancy Pelosi's husband was hit with a hammer, joking about it?
This doesn't sound like you're turning down the heat, though. You've talked about
No. Look, what I'm turning down, we have to stop the whole notion that there are certain things that are contrary to our democracy that we're for. The idea of saying that I didn't win the election when every court in the land, I don't know, 20...
This is just like this is identical to what Trump used to go, look at all the electoral votes I got over Hillary Clinton. I won Wisconsin. I won Michigan. I won Pennsylvania. Nobody thought I could do it. I knocked down the blue wall. It's the same fucking shit. It's the exact same fucking shit. Dude! It's 2024. I don't give a shit if Donald Trump never called you to congratulate you. Can you shut the fuck up?
Appeals said, including this conservative Supreme Court, said we won. the idea of having a loyalty pledge from all the folks who are in the Republican MAGA, not all Republicans, the MAGA Republicans, saying that, no, we lost the election, inflaming the people to say,
So what can you and what will you do, at least things you can control to lower down the temperature, the rhetoric out there?
Continue to talk about the things that matter to the American public. It matters whether or not you accept the outcome of elections. It matters whether or not you, for example, talk about how you're going to deal with the border instead of talking about people as being vermin and all. I mean, those things matter. That's the kind of language that is inflammatory.
Mr. President, you've been in politics a very long time, so let's speak frankly. We're all adults here. Has this shooting changed the trajectory of this race?
I don't know, and you don't know either.
I don't know, but something you've given thought to?
No, I've thought less about the trajectory of the case than two things. One, what his health is, that was secure, number one. And number two, what happens from here on in terms of the kind of coverage that the president and vice president and former president and new vice president get in terms of, look.
In terms of what? I'm sorry for yelling and being fired up today, but I mean, just everything sucks. Everything sucks.
I've never seen a circumstance where you ride through certain rural areas of the country and people have signs there, big Trump signs with middle signs saying F Biden, and a little kid standing there putting up his middle finger. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that is just inflammatory and a kind of viciousness. It's a very different thing than to say, look, I really disagree with the way he takes care of taxes, the way he wants a $5 trillion tax cut for people who are making a lot of money next time around. Doesn't focus on working class people.
But those are policy issues, and our history is a country that can thoroughly hash out those issues.
And if you notice, what do I talk about with him? The policy issues where he's dividing the country. The policy issues that relate to democracy.
Another question, if I can, about Saturday. Of course, the former president was wounded. One of his supporters died. A couple more people were seriously injured. Was this a massive security failure?
I have had 2 meetings in the Situation Room with all the intelligence communities, the FBI, Secret Service, et cetera, and I've asked for a totally independent analysis, and we'll see what happens when that comes back.
Do you have confidence in the Secret Service? Do you feel safe?
I feel safe with the Secret Service, but look. And you saw, what we did see was the Secret Service who responded risked their lives in responding. They're ready to give their lives to the president. The question is, should they have anticipated what happened? Should they have done what they needed to do to prevent this from happening? That's a question that's an open question.
Is it acceptable that you have still not heard, at least publicly, from the Secret Service director?
Well, I've heard from them.
But have you heard from her publicly?
Publicly, I've sat down in Situation Room downstairs with the Secret Service, the FBI.
You're the first progressive radical left podcast I listed to tout Andor? You're not the first? Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. It's so good. Hey, Doodleburb. Everyone follow Doodleburb.
FBI, the national security agencies, the Homeland Security, all the major elements. And there's 2 pieces of this, too. And it's not an excuse, it's just nor an explanation. There's a major piece of this relates to domestic, local law enforcement. They play a large role. And so it's a different competent. I'm not saying they weren't competent either. I'm just saying it's a complicated process. And what has changed, by the way, Lester, is, you know me, I like to meet people. I like to walk out, shake hands, move, look at people in the eyes, see what they're thinking. It's really curtailed that ability on my part and everybody's part. And so, because there's a heightened notion that when you say there's nothing wrong with going to the Capitol, breaking in, threatening people, a couple cops dying, hanging up, putting up a noose, a gallows for the former vice president, and somehow and then you say you're going to forgive people for that? You're going to pardon them? That was just a normal response? That is not. I have my entire career voted against and railed against and moved against the idea of violence is never appropriate. Never, 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 never in politics.
All right, I want to ask you about some other developing news today, if I can. Judge Cannon dismissed the documents cases you may have heard in Mar-a-Lago. Can I first get your reaction to that?
I'm not surprised. It comes from the immunity decision the Supreme Court ruled on, and Clarence Thomas, in his dissent, said that independent prosecutors appointed by the Attorney General aren't legit. That's the basis on which this judge moved to dismiss. And but I had an independent prosecutor look at me. They spent months on my going through, and I was totally cooperative. In and out of my house, and there were, I don't know, the last time in, there were like 10, 12 agents in my house for 9 hours unaccompanied, going through every single thing I had. That's appropriate. And they looked at me and concluded I didn't do a damn thing wrong. But my generic point is that it's, well, the basis upon which the case was thrown out, I find specious, because I don't agree with Clarence Thomas' dissent and or the Supreme Court decision on immunity.
In light of this decision, the delay in the Georgia case, the Supreme Court decision on immunity, which you referenced, the former president has seen a series of legal wins recently. You have actively campaigned on his legal woes. Can you do anything like that anymore?
Sure. I can talk about what I think is appropriate. What I think is appropriate. I think the Supreme Court made a terrible decision. I think the justices he appointed have, in fact, been the most conservative, and I would argue, if you survey constitutional scholarship, they seem out of touch with what the founders intended.
Before this violent turn of events over the weekend, the talk, as you know, was about you and your future, if you should stay in the race. Your allies, James Clyburn, Nancy Pelosi, have kind of put it out there that they're waiting for your decision, giving you time to make your decision. What I hear from you is that you made your decision. Are you still comfortable in that decision? Has anything changed in the last several days?
No.
What do you make of people like Nancy Pelosi, though, who seem to be of the opinion that there is a window for you to make this choice? What aren't they getting?
Look, we knew this was going to be a close race from the moment he announced. The idea that we are in a situation where, if you look at all the polling data shows a lot of different things, but there's no wide gap between us. It's essentially a toss-up race. And I think one of the arguments that get made, you have the most successful presidency of any president in modern history, maybe since Franklin Roosevelt. Passed more major legislation no one thought could get done. We're able to put together consensus. We're able to unite NATO. We're able to deal in foreign policy. Why don't you just decide to rest on those laurels? And the answer is because the job's not finished.
Do you feel like you've weathered the storm on this issue of whether you should be on the ticket or not?
Look, 14 million people voted for me to be the nominee in the Democratic Party.
I'm sorry, Chad. I totally have stopped paying attention to Joe Biden. I'm sorry, Chad. I stopped paying attention. Let me get back focused onto this. I'm sorry. I was setting up the next thing. There was no Democratic primary. Millions of people voted uncommitted. I think Joe Biden may actually be the worst politician I've ever seen. Like, I've seen some terrible politicians in my life, but he may be the worst. At a private fundraiser, Congress Adam Schiff, who is running for U.S. Senate, told donors that if the president remained on the ticket, that Democrats would lose the presidency, most likely lose the Senate, and fail to regain control of the House. I think if he is our nominee, I think we lose, Schiff said, according to a transcription of the meeting. His private comments are much stronger than the comments he made on Meet the Press. I'm legitimately, I don't know what else to say. I'm legitimately, like, on edge. I'm legitimately on edge. Thankfully, this interview is almost over.
Okay?
He just said to Lester Holt he's tried at the polls. He's losing to him in every fucking poll.
I listen to them.
In your last TV interview, you were asked if you had watched the debate, and your answer was, I don't think so, no. Have you since seen it?
I've seen pieces of it. I've not watched the whole debate.
And the reason I ask, because I guess the question is, are you all on the same page? Are you seeing what they saw, which was moments of, frankly, that appeared to be, you appeared to be confused?
Lester, why don't you guys ever talk about the 28 lies he told? Where are you on this? Why in the press?
Why aren't they telling about the lies? Because your brain is rotting!
Ever talk about that? 28 times it's confirmed he lied in that debate. I had a bad night. I wasn't feeling well at all. And I had been, without it making it, I screwed up. But
I just asked the question because the idea that you may or may not have seen what some of these other folks have seen, you're not on the same.
I'd have to see. I was there. I'd have to see it. I was there. And by the way, seriously, you won't answer the question, but why didn't the press talk about all the lies he told?
Well,
I haven't heard anything about that.
We have reported many of the issues that came up during that debate.
No, you haven't.
We'll provide you with them.
God love you.
Okay. President Obama.
I mean, this is Joe Biden's strategy of interviewing the interviewer. I would love to talk to him. I'd love to have a little debate with him.
Out a statement after the debate, but should he and Michelle Obama be doing more to express their confidence in you?
No, they're helping me. They've helped me from the beginning. This is my job to get this done.
Have you talked to him recently about this?
I haven't talked to him in a couple weeks.
Have you talked to him since this issue came to light, since the debate?
I don't think, I may have. I don't think so.
Who do you listen to on deeply personal issues, like the decisions whether to stay in the race or not?
Me. Look, I've been doing this a long time. The idea that I'm the old guy, I am. I'm old. But I'm only 3 years older than Trump, number one. And number two, my mental acuity's been pretty damn good. I've gotten more done than any president has in a long time, in 3.5 years. So I'm willing to be judged on that. I understand why people say, God, he's 81 years old. Whoa, what's he going to be when he's 83 years old or 84 years old? It's a legitimate question to ask.
I want to ask you about, just shortly before you and I sat down, former President Trump named his vice presidential pick, J.D. Vance. What does that tell you, his qualities? What does that tell you about former President Trump's values in terms of who he will surround himself with in a next administration should he win?
Well, it's not unusual. He's going to surround himself with people who agree completely with him. Have a voting record. I support him. Even though if you go back and listen to the things that J.D. Vance said about Trump.
Well, he said some things about you, yeah.
Oh, no, well, he said some things about me, but see what he said about Trump.
Oh, no, guys, he didn't. Oh, no, a Republican politician was skeptical of Trump. Oh, no. I wonder if this is going to work this time. Well, you know, when we did the attacks against Lindsey Graham or any other Republican or Mitt Romney. Wow, that was so effective. Nobody cares that he didn't like Trump 5 years ago, 7 years ago. No one gives a shit. Now, you know what you say is, wow, he said that Trump was bad. And then he goes, yeah, I did say that. I was wrong. Trump is actually great. He convinced me, and he's convinced millions of other Americans. Wow! Oh, my God! The big fucking reveal! Looks like your campaign failed! Nobody cares again! Like, how many people have shit-talked Trump and have fallen in line? Millions at this point. Nobody cares! And the honest-to-God truth is the VP pick doesn't even matter. The VP pick doesn't even matter. What I look at the VP pick for is a clue for what Trump wants to shore up within his own base, which is he wants the Republican establishment to see that he picked a wonkish nerd who wants to implement their policies. JD Vance is a compromise pick between the wonkish conservative movement people and someone who will also be unfailingly loyal to Trump because he owes everything to Trump. He would be an irrelevant junior senator from Ohio. Now he's going to become the vice president and possibly even the heir apparent to Trump. So he will be completely loyal to and dependent upon Trump for his political ascendancy. That is what is happening here. Do you think that a voter was like, I don't know, I was going to vote for Trump, but then he picked JD Vance? He'll be seen by everybody as what he is, a bookish nerd assistant to Trump. Nobody is going to fucking care. Anybody telling you that it's going to be some sort of damaging thing to Trump is delusional.
What's with you guys? Come on, man. Look, the point I'm making is that J.D. Vance has adopted the same policies, no exceptions on abortion, making sure that he supports the new $5 trillion tax cut that Trump wants to give in the next administration, signing on to the...
He can't even do his job. He can't even do his job. Wow, a $5 trillion tax cut. That sounds great. Am I going to have a big tax cut? Because this is where we are in American politics. Tax cuts are real. Something that you might actually get. Every other promise seems like bullshit. He couldn't even say a $5 trillion tax cut for the rich. He can't even say for the rich. He can't even get his talking points out.
The whole notion of whether or not we're going to, he says there's no climate change is happening. I mean, he signed on to the Trump agenda, which he should if he's running with Trump.
Mr. Trump has said he's giving you a chance to redeem yourself. Basically, the idea of engaging in another debate.
We're going to have another debate.
Yeah, you're going to have one in September that's on the books. Would you be open to doing one in the next few weeks?
I'm going to debate him when we agreed to debate, and I'm going to debate him in September.
Yeah, because if he did another debate, he would do poorly, and he would really get thrown off the ballot. But he promises to do another debate after the nomination. Hey, Joe, just say you're not going to debate him again. Just say that you're not going to debate him again.
But if the opportunity came up to do one between now and then, is there a sense of wanting to get back on the horse?
I'm on the horse. Where have you been? I've done 22 major events, met thousands of people, overwhelming crowds, a lot happening. I'm on the horse. What I'm doing is going out and demonstrating to the American people that I have command of all my faculties, that I don't need notes, I don't need teleprompter. I can go out and answer any questions at all. And I stood there when NATO was in town. I stood there for an hour and answered questions.
If you were to continue to run and be officially nominated, what happens if you have another episode like we saw during the debate?
What happens if another?
Yeah, what happens if
What did he just say?
Officially nominated, what happens if you have another episode like we saw during the debate?
What happens if another?
Yeah, what
'46th president of the United States.
What happens if you have another performance on that par, on that level?
I don't plan on having another forum on that level.
All right. Mr. President, it's always good to talk to you. Good to see you. Thank you for making some time for us.
Sometimes come and talk to me about what we should be talking about.
All right.
Okay, the issues.
Always happy to talk.
The issue is your brain is fucking rotten. Are you sure you want to talk about the issues, you fucking dumb piece of shit? I'd love to talk to you about the issues. Record-breaking climate change with your policies will do nothing to address. The fact that you have not re-entered the Iran nuclear deal, the fact that you're perpetuating a genocide on the Palestinians, the fact that the war in Ukraine is resulting in the destruction of the country and no further progress being made while hundreds of thousands of people are killed and hundreds of billions of dollars wasted. How about the fact that you are putting tariffs on electric vehicles and solar panels, making it even harder for Americans to transition to renewable energy? How about the fact that unionization rates have hit a record low? How about the fact that you failed to raise the minimum wage? Wait until this fucking AI bubble bursts once and for all. Wait until we get another fucking little bubble pop. And this shit economy goes into the dumper.
That was our unedited conversation with President Biden. We should note we extended the same interview offer to Mr. Trump to sit down with us on the first night of the Democratic National Convention when it happens next month. For now, let me bring in my colleague Savannah Guthrie in Milwaukee.
Okay, we're done with this. That interview was fucking trash.